things. You do things like that and you show that you're the adult in the room, yeah. I don't think anybody could dismiss Donald Trump at this particular moment in time, not just because of him, but because of what we've seen the Democrats do. We're not falling for it any longer. The American people aren't falling for it any longer. I voted Democrat, and I got to tell you something right now. I don't like the fact that I did. I don't like what I'm seeing. I don't want to hear about, oh, we're about law, we're about a law. Nobody's above the law. Nobody's above the law. But then you go out and you pardon your son, and you try to blame everybody else for it. I don't want to hear about defund the police. I don't want to hear about, you know what, there should be open borders. I don't want to hear this stuff. And I don't think most of the American people want to hear that. We're thinking about the state of affairs that's in. We're not about America only, but being about America and prioritizing what's going on in this nation with the desolate and the disenfranchised and everybody else in between, and looking out for the best interest of what it is for America. That is not a crime for an American politician or a commander-in-chief or a senator or a congressional figure to have that mentality. I want them to have that mentality. So I think about things along those lines. And I'm no longer interested in, nor do I believe any of us should be interested in listening to a bunch of fear-mongering to tell us who we shouldn't vote for.
What? Stephen A. Smith expresses regret for his past Democratic support. Now, if you've been watching this, I've been showing little snippets of Stephen A. here throughout the channel. You can see this man like awakening a little bit, and not necessarily makes him a conservative or nothing like a Republican. It doesn't matter. It's the fact that he can see the hypocrisy of the left, and the left have only themselves to blame, because when you look at the outcomes, don't care about the spin jobs. Because if you don't like spin jobs, please subscribe to my channel, because I try not to give you a spin job. I make it as clear as possible why I believe the things that I believe, what I'm basing those things on, and I'm open to being proven wrong. That's the best you can get at this point, because it shows even legacy media, they are biased. They're not objective. You ain't going to find objective coverage on politics, especially not from legacy media. Legacy media covers Donald Trump 89% of the time negative. You expect to hear objective news from an institution that covers a candidate 89% of the time negatively, and the Democratic candidate 87% of the time positively? Yeah, okay. So Stephen A. Smith's coming out expressing that he regrets supporting the Democratic Party. And before we get into the clip, I want to highlight Mr. Lindy Lee.
They've got to move on quickly, haven't they?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. She's indulging delusions of running for governor in California in 2026 and perhaps even running for president in 2028. And I just want to echo what a lot of you guys already said. This past week has been harrowing for me. This Saturday, I went on Fox and Friends and I said that Democrats have a stench of loser hanging over them.
Yeah.
As soon as I said that, there were boycott campaigns against me, unblock, unfollow campaigns. I lost 40,000 followers.
Really?
In 4 days. People have called me the W word. I don't know what we're allowed to say, but you can fill in the blank.
We're uncensored. Let's say it. Say it. Say what the word was.
Am I allowed to?
Yeah.
Well, they called me a whore. They called me the C word. They asked for me to be deported. And you can just search for my name in those terms on X and you'll see a bunch of them. So, all these so-called Democrats, the party of inclusion, the party of diversity, masks off. And it's even worse because they pretend to occupy the moral high ground. They pretend to be, so loving and caring and embracing of diversity. But all of a sudden, when I dare to utter any criticisms of the goddess, Kamala Harris, I get ostracized. Me, after having raised tens of millions of dollars for the party. My donors are pissed. They raised $2.5 billion across Super PAC in the campaign. It's my responsibility. It's my duty of care to ask what the hell happened with that money? Why did we spend it? Why did we spend millions of dollars on five-star hotels for campaign staffers? Why did we spend $500,000 essentially bribing Al Sharpton moments before he interviewed Kamala? These are legitimate questions, but no, in the cult, you can't ask questions.
So, as you can see, people are starting to express regret for supporting the Democratic Party. And it's a pattern of behavior, because in 2020, there was voters that expressed regret for voting for Joe Biden because they found out, hey, if you the question was in this poll, if you had found out about the Biden laptop story, would your vote for Joe Biden have changed? Enough people said yes that it would have gave Trump the election. So when Trump complains about the election being rigged, this is what Trump talks about, because all these journalists who has a liberal bias is known throughout the journalism profession that journalism is the most liberal profession here in the United States of America. There's only 3.2% of journalists that are Republican, which infers a big bias against Republicans. And all of them unilaterally went out of their way to discredit the Hunter Biden laptop story. This is what people are talking about when we say rig election. But instead, like liberals tend to do, they tend to try to strawman you into an imagination of what they think you're saying and not the reality of what you're saying. Oh, they think of voter fraud and all this stuff. There's some cases that link into that. But the biggest issue Trump had was that the entire media establishment, which Democrats have in their back pocket, maybe a future video is going to come out explaining that, they push and discredit, oh, it's Russian disinformation. Oh, it's not. A FBI agent said that this is a false story, a misguided story. 60 Minutes, Trump said, hey, you guys are not going to cover it because you guys defend Democrats. Oh, no, we don't. We're objective. We just report the news. Then 4 years later, 2 years later, 2022, 2023, around there, we found out the Hunter Biden laptop stories was in fact his laptop. And this always comes out. And this is why I always highlight the deception of the left and why liberals never really were persuasive to me, why I never really was around their side, because I noticed whenever I start scrutinizing anything, their stances, their positions, if I ask any questions, insults, smugness, condensation, they do this little acting. Oh, they act appalled. Oh, I can't believe you asked that. I can't believe you said that, Kenny. How can you say that racism isn't a problem? This is stuff I'm literally reimagining what happens to me as an 8-year-old kid. Like, I question everything. Like, I was the white kid. My mom, you couldn't stand me. She's like, Kenny, you're a curious kid. You always asking questions when they don't need to be asking questions. I did the same thing. Oh, why is racism the biggest problem in my life? Well, the white person can't get off your neck. I'm surrounded by black people. I rarely meet white people. I grew up in Miami, so I was around Hispanic people mostly. Hispanics, Dominicans, Jamaicans, Trinidadians, Caribbean people. I was around them. I rarely meet a white person. So how are they holding any of us back when most of the time we're around? Kenny, you are cool to this. My own life is an antidote of that. And I made a promise to myself, hey, anything bad that happens to me, I'll consider racism to be the last fact. We want to react to Stephen A. Smith expressing regret over his past support for Democrats and get a more idea of what he's thinking. So let's get into it.
I'm not going to sit up there and dismiss that anymore. I think we're beyond that. He would have to prove a lot, Mark. And I'm not talking about policy now. For a second, allow me to say this. What concerned me about Donald Trump, and the reason I voted against him and voted for Kamala Harris, was because I felt that he would be divisive, that he would create chaos because he demands such a level of loyalty and fealty.
But that's the narrative that like I said, mainstream media did. So if you watch cable news like ABC, CNN, New York Times, all this stuff, they inherently push out more negative stories about Donald Trump. So how you know your perception wasn't just conditioned by the fact that you're only exposed to, your information diet was only negative news towards Trump. This is the effect that they create, and this is why they do it. This is why they cover Donald Trump 89% of the time negatively, because they want most people to have a negative perception of Trump. This is what I'm talking about. Your information diet has a big effect on you. Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. Show me the information that you consume, and I can know what your conclusions are. This is the effect. This is the result of that. But when reality comes knocking, it don't matter how you feel. It don't matter what you think. Reality said this is what it is. Donald Trump won. Donald Trump won the popular vote. More people in this country voted for Trump than they did for the Democratic supporter, even though the media establishment gave 89% of the time negative coverage on him. Why? Look at the polls. Majority of people don't trust the mainstream media. Why? And conservatives say, yeah, because they're biased. Liberals play deny games. Oh, deny. No, we're not biased. We cover the facts. But every stance that the liberal journalists defend has crumbled. Biden is mentally sharp. Biden is as sharp as a tack. Reality, he wasn't since the beginning of his term. He has not been, he's been on a mental decline. Make it make sense. Every time, not every time, but most of the time y'all wrong. And you're pretending you're objective. If you're objective, you tend to be more right than you are wrong. Based on your track record, based on your result, this is why alternative media is the future. I digress.
To him, and that would take priority over governing our nation. That was my concern. And so I'm looking for both sides to work across the aisle from one another. Having said that, when you see some of the things that he said, if he follows through on some of the things that he has said, it's not just about eradicating inflation, improving the economy, obviously controlling our borders. These are all things that I care about, make no mistake about that, and I certainly would support him in that regard. But it can't be just about fealty to him and loyalty to him. It has to be about getting the job done on behalf of what's in
the fealty and like this is the little mental gymnastics that happen. The reason why people are fealty and loyal to Trump is because of what he said he was going to do. This is why people are loyal to him. That's the cause. The cause was Trump was willing to say things that other politicians didn't want to expose. Trump did that. Trump was willing to say we need to build the wall. No politician was saying that before Trump. No politician pointed out how much of a problem the border was until Trump came into the picture. That is the purpose. This is the cause of the loyalty and fealty to him. No one's just loyal and fealty to a person just because that person's a person. That don't make no damn sense. But this is the narrative that Stephen A. Smith, who consumes a lot more liberal news than he does conservative news, this is how he ends up in the way that he goes. And at the end, you're going to hear him say, yeah, I kind of feel regretful for supporting the Democratic Party, seeing as how the reality of what they are. Because he was voting based on a perception of the Democratic Party, not the reality of the Democratic Party. Let's go.
In the best interest of the American people, as opposed to yourself, and not engaging in a kind of juvenile tendencies, tweeting all the time and going after people who are really much irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. You do things like that and you show that you're the adult in the room. Yeah. I don't think anybody could dismiss Donald Trump at this particular moment in time, not just because of him, but because of what we've seen the Democrats do. We're not falling for it any longer. The American people aren't falling for it any longer. I voted Democrat, and I got to tell you something right now. I don't like the fact that I did.
Damn.
I don't like what I'm seeing. I don't want to hear about, oh, we're about law. We're about a law. Nobody's above the law. Nobody's above the law. But then you go out and you pardon your son.
That
and
killed
you try
them.
to blame everybody else for it. I don't want to hear about defund the police. I don't want to hear about, you know what, there should be open borders. I don't want to hear this stuff. And I don't think most of the American people want to hear that. We're thinking about the state of affairs that's in. We're not about America only, but being about America and prioritizing what's going on in this nation with the desolate and the disenfranchised and everybody else in between. Looking out for the best interest of what it is for America.
Exactly.
That is not a crime.
Nope.
For an American politician or
and imagine they try to make this like being American first, like some Nazi thing. Like, no. When you're in your family, you take the priorities of your family, the needs of your family first in consideration before anyone else's consideration. This is the same thing with politics. This is why everything's an extension of individuals. Like, you can't have collectives without individuals. Individualism is like the foundation for anything. And if the collective risk the needs of the individual, the collective will disperse. The collective will crumble. And this is what's going on right now in the Democratic Party.
commander-in-chief or a senator or a congressional figure to have that mentality. I want them to have that mentality. So I think about things along those lines. And I'm no longer interested in, nor do I believe any of us should be interested in listening to a bunch of fear-mongering to tell us who we shouldn't vote for. Why don't you come up with a plan that tells us why we should vote for you?
Exactly.
That's what I'm interested in. And if Donald Trump,
keep it up.
J.D. Vance,
keep cooking.
Byron Donald, Marco Rubio, or the host of other Republican candidates coming down the pike, that's the kind of message that they're going to put forth, I'm down for it.
Woo!
I'm open-minded enough
Good.
to make sure that I entertain that from a policy perspective. That's what I want for the American people. That's what I want for this nation.
And this was something I was telling Kamala Harris supporters online, like when I was going on my tirades, and I did like 500 videos on why Kamala Harris is a bad candidate and why Kamala Harris is convincing. Kamala's biggest gripe is she don't know how to talk to non-Democrats. If you're a non-Democrat, Kamala Harris don't know how to communicate to you. She only knows how to talk to Democrats. That's why all these black women love her, because the majority of black women are Democrats. And these same black women don't even know how to communicate to people who are not Democrats. Like me. I'm not a Democrat. So you come in here telling me all this, oh, she's gonna be a sorority sister, she's this, she's gonna be a biracial woman, first woman. I don't care about the histrionics. What's she's gonna do? What's her solutions? These things are problems. The border's a problem, the economy's a problem, inflation's a problem. How she's gonna fix those? Oh, she's gonna do price gouging laws on corporations. I'm looking at them like, no, corporations are not the reason for inflation. Government spending is the reason for inflation. And they don't even know that much. But they want to tell me, oh, I'm voting against my best interest when you don't even know my best interest. And this is what I was talking about. If there's a collective incentive that hurts the individual, don't expect that individual to go along with the collective. And this is how black conservatives became to be. That as a black conservative, the collective is telling me, you have to vote Democrat. I go, why? Because everything the Democrats stand for is against my individual best interest. So I'm going to go to the Republicans. Makes sense, doesn't it? And my argument is, if enough people in the collective realize that the consensus that's being formed with this collective is not actually benefiting most of the people in that collective, bye-bye. And this is why black Democrats are so threatened by black Republicans, black conservatives, because that optics expose that, hey, just because you're black doesn't mean you vote Democrat. And I think that's the biggest threat. And I think this is the biggest reason why there's so much vitriol for minority conservatives, for women to be part of the conservative movement. This is why they get all this vitriol. When they found out most white women voted for the Republican Party, most married women voted for the Republican Party, all these single liberal women were pissed online, on TikTok. Mad, angry. But instead of arguing the trade-offs and why you offer better solutions, you rather create a fear-mongering narrative. Oh, they're going to take away your rights. They're going to put you back in the kitchen. They're going to put you in change. All this fear-mongering is a trademark of the Democratic Party messaging. And they wonder why they lost. While in the Republican American First movement, I don't care if you're black. I don't care if you're white. I don't care if you're about your ethnicity. I don't care where you're from. If you're an American, we want what's best for this country, because what's best for this country will be best for all of us. A more unified message, and you wonder why Trump won the popular vote. Democrats are still out of touch, but hey, I love it. It helps. It makes every non-Democrat's side easier. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you agree with Stephen A. Smith's synopsis? Do you like the fact? Do you like the signal that's going on right now that you see a lot of these people who are pro-Democrats are starting to seem regretful and even moving away from the Democratic Party, that the Democratic Party is essentially shrinking its tent? How do you feel about what's going on in the Democratic Party currently? I'd like to hear your thoughts on that in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Appreciate you guys watching to the end of the video, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.